the Iran war is back on, and it's not slowing down. Strikes and counterstrikes with no ceasefire holding for long. And we are expending munitions faster than the industrial base can replace them on a fight with no clear strategy behind it. On the water, sailors aboard the USS Lincoln are grinding through an extended deployment with no coherent mission and no end date in sight. Morale is cratering, and it's not just fatigue. It's a Pentagon that can't tell its own troops why they're out there. That's not a messaging problem. That's a leadership failure, and it's eating away at trust in the chain of command. Joining me is Bobby Jones, retired U.S. Navy commander and the voice behind the Anchor Watch Substack. Bobby, I know I sound like a broken record on this, but the failures aboard the USS Lincoln are less about logistics. I mean, that has to be addressed. It's less about bad food. Sailors often get bad food. But the complaints that you're hearing leak outside the chain of command, that doesn't happen unless there is a loss of faith in leadership. Speak to that.
Well, let me start by saying this, because I've seen some right-wing, extreme right-wing comments talking about, well, these sailors aren't mentally tough. Let me be very, very clear. Sailors are calibrated to deploy. You can talk to any other branch of service. When they sit and they stand on a ship for any, extended period of time, they lose their minds, Marines included, right? But when you get soldiers and airmen on ships and they're on there for 2 weeks for an exercise or something, they lose their minds. We are calibrated to do this. When I signed up and joined, deployments were 6 months. The global war on terrorism started extending them to 7 and 8 months. My last deployment in the Middle East was 9 months. The difference is we were pulling in at least once a month, to try to get this right here is different, people. Different. And if you think I'm making this up, I tell you what, why don't you go sit in your basement every day and not come up for 6 months, this, that, and the other, and see how you deal with it. So the fact that you have family members who, by the way, we're not talking about just first-time deployments. We're talking 14, 15 years in. This is not their first rodeo. Complaining says a lot. A lot. And most importantly, when I watched Hegseth give his commentary, he was down there in Panama, right outside he was, I guess, visiting USS Gridley, DDG 101 down there. He literally sounded like a buffoon. He was like, I deployed, not on a ship. Blah, blah, blah. No, that key phrase, on a ship, matters, Pete. I did an Army deployment for freaking almost a year in sub-Saharan Africa. And I didn't even bat an eye because it was easy, because I was on land. On land. A sailor can do Army shit. They can be on ground for months at a time and not bat an eye. But you cannot take a soldier and put them on a ship for 6 months. They'll lose their minds. Okay? So we're talking about two totally different things. And for Hegseth to be like, well, I can relate. No, the hell you can't. You can't. And that right there shows what type of leadership we have here. Someone who's completely ill-suited to even comment on this. And then I'll take it a step further. The Secretary of the Navy, the acting Secretary of the Navy, Hung Cao, okay?
Yeah.
He's an Annapolis grad, but he's EOD historically. Explosive Ordnance Disposal. Ladies and gentlemen, they do not deploy on ships typically. If they do, they're there for a couple of weeks. They may get some ice cream, break something on the ship, and then they roll out. See, this is what matters. Having people that know exactly how operationally this is supposed to work matters, Ken. It matters. And the thing is, they're sitting there trying to puff their chest to look tough, not realizing by making the statements they're making, they're pushing away the very people they're supposed to be taking care of, and that's the families of these sailors. That's it.
Yep.
And then when
when the news reports do come out, they're called fake news. And I want you to take us inside the mindset of the sailor on board that ship who was looking at a plate of, rotten meat. And look, I've eaten that meal before too. Yep. And I haven't complained about it because I understand. And I haven't done sea deployments like that. I was a land-based Navy pilot. But towards the end of deployments, conditions tend to get worse, especially on submarines and on aircraft carriers. But when you're looking at your reality, the conditions you are being asked to endure, and you're being told that your reality is fake by the
Yes.
Secretary of Defense when he
Yes.
calls what you are literally living in fake news. That is way more devastating to morale than bad food or an extended deployment. It's seeing your leadership lie about what
Right.
you're going through.
I mean, look, when you have sailors that deploy, you know you're going to make some changes to get through the day every day after day after day. And I see Melissa has joined the commentary. She's a former sailor. She knows. We all know. First of all, they're in what we call port and starboard watches, from what I'm seeing. Port and starboard meaning 6 on, 6 off, or 12
Yeah.
on, 12 off every day for over hundreds of days now. Just boom, 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 boom. Now, you get into this routine, right? The thing is, though, you never really get enough rest, especially in an environment like that where you are on combat alert all the time, right? You run all these drills, and then the drills bleed into actual real world operations. I mean, let's talk about how many sorties that the Abe Lincoln Strike Group has done, right?
Yeah.
And so you start to develop, and this is the thing that people don't talk about. The Navy has tried to correct this over decades. You start to develop sleep deprivation, sleep deficits that you never truly make up, which is why when you pull into port, what sailors do is they sleep. They'll go out, but they will sleep 12 hours, this and other. They'll get a hotel room just to sleep, to try to make up some of these things, man. And people who have not done it do not understand. And that's for the regular watchstanders. Heaven forbid you're a senior enlisted or an officer that has the responsibilities of running the divisions and departments, or God forbid you're the commanding officer or the executive officer second in command. It's rough because now you're on call 24/7. The hell with your sleep, the hell with this and other.
Yeah.
And it wears on you physically, which then wears on you mentally. It affects your decision-making matrix. That whole thing is real. I lived it. When I was XO of USS Anzio, we entered the Persian Gulf after having a 9-month carrier gap there. So Iran, the IRGCN, they were running rampant, and we had to be ramped up immediately. I didn't get much sleep that first month of deployment. We were in the Gulf, lived it, right? And so I say this because the commentary that is coming from some of these people is the most ignorant of all things I've ever heard, because the United States Navy is so radically different than the other branches of service. It just is because of this. And so I would say the last thing I would say on this too is understand something. When you are running drills and being bored and it's monotonous, that's hard enough. But when it's peppered in with bad food, so you're doing the 12 on, 12 off, and then you go to sit down to eat, and they literally throw frozen meat that's been frozen for months and something that's canned that may be there, and that's all you get. You get one ration of it, and you're supposed to make it last. God forbid if you were on the flight deck that's running this. And the other thing that's not being talked about, the Abraham Lincoln Strike Group is a group. There are smaller ships around that aircraft carrier, specifically destroyers. Destroyers are over 500 feet long. Aircraft carrier is an acre and a half. So imagine going through the same thing that you're hearing about the carrier, only on much smaller ships, and you only have 500 feet that you see for weeks and months at a time.
Yeah.
It will wear on you.
I hope people are multitasking and following the chat here. Thanks, Melissa, for weighing in. We got to bring you into one of these conversations one of
Mhm.
these days. But it's also the nature of the sleep itself. And it might seem funny that we're focusing so much on sleep, but without rest, functionality fades. And even when you do get your 12 off, you got to use that to eat, to shower. And when you do fall asleep, let's say you're a junior enlisted underneath the catapult.
There it
How
is.
restful do you think that sleep is, especially when, as Melissa points out, at any second, that alarm might go off and you have to be ready in seconds to put out a fire? Not hypothetical on the Lincoln. They're putting out
No.
fires, literal
Yes.
fires
Yes.
on the
Yes.
USS Lincoln. Yeah. Robbie, let her rip.
We've had this other piece too. I mean, let's not forget Gerald R. Ford and what happened with their fire and how those cats had to sleep on the deck, right, for months. Th- again, Tommy Toughnuts down there in Panama talking this noise, right? I dare Hegseth. He wants to go hang out with the troops. Go hang out on Abraham Lincoln for a month. Impress me. Show me leadership from the deck plate since you know it's easy and hey, we do extraordinary things. No, your sailors are doing extraordinary things because
Mhm.
you failed to come up with a strategy. You assumed that you were going to have the logistic hubs that you had in the Middle East, and within the first week they were taken out. So now your ships can't pull in. Your replenishment ships that bring the food, the fuel, the mail have to come from a long way away now to get it there. So forget fresh food. We're just talking basic necessities to exist in the environment takes forever. And the fact that you think that these sailors' families are going to be quiet about it, it's obvious he's not been in front of Navy families before. It's
Yeah.
obvious because out of all the branches of service, the ones that's going to complain the loudest are sailor wives and sailor dependents. Just
Yeah.
are. Just are. And that's where we are. And here's the last thing I'll say on this because I've been so angry about this. Ken, this was predictable.
Yeah.
And they had no plan. They had no secondary or tertiary logistics plan for these ships. And now we're pulling the George Washington, who's been dealing with, I don't know, China, North Korea, Russia, in the 7th Fleet AOR away from them, just like we pulled the THAAD system from South Korea and moved it to the Middle East. We're pulling assets away from bigger threats than Iran to deal with Iran. That is the butterfly effect. That shows a complete lack of strategy, planning, operational know-how, and tactical understanding by the so-called Secretary of War.
Yeah. Who will never, ever show up where it might actually matter. He'll go to a PT and try to do a
Yep.
pull up. He'll go to a
Yep.
curated audience, or he'll stand in front of a bunch of generals who he knows won't stand up to him because they're going to maintain their military bearing. But you know what? This made me think of, and everyone knows I'm no fan of George W. Bush, but the man flew to Iraq in the middle of a war zone at Thanksgiving.
Yep.
I remember that, even as someone
Yep.
who didn't agree
Yep.
with his policies. I
Yep.
mean, the leadership it took to go to that war zone, something Donald Trump would never do. And you know what? This contrast makes itself. I'm riffing here. This is off the top of my head, but
Mm-hmm.
contrast George Bush showing up for a Thanksgiving meal in Iraq
Yep.
under, within
Yep.
artillery and rocket range of
Yep.
the militias versus Donald Trump crawling into a catering truck and his
It,
leaving his team on board Air Force One as decoys, missile sponges for a potential Iranian assassination attempt. I think sailors they see these things, and maybe they're not talking about that explicitly, but the even the loss of like symbolic leadership, the affect of
right.
leadership, being there for your troops when they need to see you,
Right.
that that doesn't go unnoticed.
No, and it's something because I think, and this is from people who I'm still in contact with, they see through both Trump and Hegseth. They really do
Yeah.
now. They see that the difference between the rhetoric and the action. When you literally think about it, when like you said, Bush made multiple visits. Heck, Obama made multiple visits. All of these people made visits. The one time I'll never forget that Trump during his first term went to Afghanistan, it was a quick detour and he was terrified. Terrified. It was documented. Google it, people. I remember. Petra's Farm remembers. We all remember. He was wide eyed about going, and he talked about the descent into Afghanistan, and this, that, and the other. He never wanted to do it again. And so I'm not shocked that the man's in a catering truck trying to leave everybody behind. That's not shocking. But what's shocking is the same man is giving you the rhetoric about how tough America is, and he's the leader of it. Hegseth went with him. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but you're going to tell me, hey, they can tough it out, et cetera, et cetera. We have people who do not understand the value of sacrifice for someone else. And therefore, they believe that the people sacrificing are sacrificing for them individually. And there is your fundamental mismatch of ethics, in my opinion.
Yeah. Would love an update if you've got one on this missile shortage. The rhetoric from the government around this is just baffling. On one hand, we're told there isn't a missile shortage. but if there is, it's Biden's fault.
Yeah.
But there isn't, and anyone who talks about it will be accused of treason. But there
Right.
is, so we need more money to make up the missile shortage. It feels like the wheels are coming off the bus just in
It
hearing
is.
them talk about something this demonstrable. I mean, it's obvious that we are running short of these prestige interceptors.
It is, and I think they're trying to play a semantics game when they say missile
Yeah.
shortages. First of all, there we have missile shortages both in offensive capability and defensive capability, but it's far worse for defensive capabilities than offensive capabilities from what I'm seeing from various places like CSIS and this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
So when they say we have plenty of missiles, okay, full stop. My next question would be to do what, sir? To do what? Because here's the thing, they are able to continue to do the bombing, like you've already mentioned, but they're not able to defend anything. And this is where the rub is. It is for strategic, guidance moving forward. We can attack. We can keep attacking Iran, and Trump has even said we can bomb them into whatever. But when they retaliate, and remember when we first started doing this show, I said they're throwing all the cannon fodder, the cheap stuff out now to deplete our interceptors. Now, what you're
Mhm.
seeing, they're giving out the Gucci stuff, terminal maneuvers when they come in with these drones to defeat your air defense systems, which is a thing, and you can't knock it down. Which is why all of a sudden you got to retreat, and I'm using that word, retreat American forces further inland, right? Put them in areas where you hope your air defense capability can still hold up. And yet, just like we saw with Kuwait and Jordan and this, that, and the other, we still don't have enough. So what's happening, ladies and gentlemen, is the United States Central Command is having to make very hard strategic decisions. What can we defend versus what we will allow to get hit, right? And you hope that there are no American servicemen and women in those areas that they allow to get hit. And you have to pray that the systems you have in place for what you want to defend has the capability and enough interceptors to do the job. It's a huge gamble that we're playing because we got ourselves in this situation.
Your analysis 2 months ago was so prescient, and I want to emphasize it, because of how it laid out everything that's happening right now. And maybe if I could use an analogy, because I want this audience to understand the
Mm,
Iranian mindset here and how we were just totally played by them. It's as if they moved all of their pawns forward and we took them out with knights and queens, and we don't have
mm.
any knights and queens left. They used
No.
dumb drones, Shaheds, $20,000 to $50,000 drones in
Yep.
waves aimed at Gulf state capitals and American bases. And we used, in some cases, 2 or 3 multi-million-dollar interceptors to take them down the whole time. Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are high-fiving each other at our kill rate that
Yep.
very little Iranian ordnance is getting through.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, the Iranians are saving the good stuff.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we're at a point now where we are so depleted. It is exactly as Bobby said it would be, and exactly as he just restated. We are having to choose now what we let through and what we take down, because the only
Mhm.
thing that can knock out a ballistic missile, as the Ukrainians are experiencing every night, is one of these prestige interceptors, and we
Exactly.
are running low. This, because of that equation, Bobby, is not just a regional issue. It implicates Taiwan. It obviously implicates
Very much so.
Ukraine. Yeah, please address that.
So I'm glad you brought this up, Kim, because I think people are not seeing the bigger picture here. What has happened in Iran does two things to me. One, it verifies what's been going on with Russia, Ukraine. Ukrainians have been on the cutting edge of figuring out this problem. They're not sending knights and queens to take out these pawns anymore. They're saving their knights and queens to go deep into Russia. That's the decision they have made strategically. We're going to put them on kilter. And then the second piece of it is internationally, this changed warfare. This changes how nations will strategically fight moving forward. We kind of thought it with Russia, Ukraine. It's now been verified with Iran, United States. I've been saying this all the time. This is the 20th century versus the 21st century in fighting warfare. And lo and
Mhm.
behold, the 21st century is winning in the 21st century. You have Donald Trump talking about battleships that were a thing at the beginning of the 20th century, wanting those, while meanwhile, back to Rance, Zelensky is telling you there are ways to defeat these. You have to change your way of thinking. But our arrogance and our pride is not allowing it. Ken, you've been there. You're going back there, obviously. Listen, you've seen how the improvisational skills of the Ukrainians have been effective, right? What is that? The question we got to ask ourselves, how does that translate to Taiwan when China goes across the strait? How does that translate now to any regional actor that wants to be rid of Western influence, for example? They can do it cheaply. They can do it affordably. They can literally change the dynamic of how the world acts because of the combination of arrogance and incompetence that the United States is displaying. And Russia's displaying a lot of that too, right? This is what we all have in common. So the thing that I will tell people is warfare has changed in real time. We have people who are stuck in the 20th century way of doing it because of not just the arrogance, but because of profitability, i.e., the military industrial complex and the lack of flexibility it provides. And finally, the fact that we believe that people are going to quake in their boots just because we show up. That era is over. Iran has told you that. Iran told you that back in 79, but they are letting you know right now. We're not scared of you sons of bitches. And we're willing to endure and take whatever out. You can say whatever about them internally, but to the rest of the world, they are being tough and they know that they will outlast us.
And the message that the whole world is taking to heart based on our failure with taking on Iran is if you don't have a nuke yet, you better get one fast.
That's it.
And if you do have a nuke, don't let it go. That's the lesson Ukraine has learned incredibly
Mm-hmm.
painfully. Remember, they
Mm-hmm.
gave up their nukes in exchange for an American promise of security.
Yep.
So we had astronaut and space station commander Terry Virts on, might even be a VFRL endorsee,
Mm-hmm.
F-16 pilot, great guy,
Mm-hmm.
who made the point that the real long-term ramification of this failure of America vis-a-vis Iran and Ukraine and globally is going to be nuclear proliferation. A couple of
Yep.
great questions in the chat. Tamara asking, how long does it take to produce one of these interceptors like the PAC-3 for the Patriot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Long time. Takes a
Yeah.
couple years to make a Tomahawk.
Yes.
Bobby, how long does it take to make a PAC-3?
Anywhere from 2 years, and then we're talking about that interceptors up to 56 months, something insane like that. And understand, one of the reasons why it takes so long, ladies and gentlemen, is Congress in their jobs program mentality with the military. They will contract all these various components of these parts to be built in their states. So, like I said, the F-22, when they brought it online, had its parts made in 46 different states. 46 different states. So they have to procure it and bring it all together, farm Voltron, and then try to have a plane. This is because money, 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 money was the driving force and not real actual deterrence. World War II, all that went away. They had a congressional committee that says you will build things as fast, as efficiently as possible, as cheap as possible, or we throw your ass in jail.
Yeah.
That's been the difference. And so we don't have that type of mindset. And so when Trump and company came out this past week talking about, we told them they have 21 days to come up with a solution to shorten the procurement process and blah, 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 blah. Okay, you can count your 21 days. They're going to tell you the same thing. The infrastructure is not set up to do what they want to do because the strategy that the United States had was all about show and not actually having to do. And if we had to pivot, we planned for it. We just didn't decide it one weekend over at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. And the incentives are all wrong. And I contrast this with Ukraine, which is probably going to build 5 million drones this year, not 5,000, not 500,000, 5 million drones this
Yep.
year. But they're not, and I'm talking about the cheap ones, the ones that are
Yep.
winning at the front line.
Yep.
There is no profit margin on a $500 drone that's going to excite an American contractor. The incentives are
Exactly.
all different. In Ukraine, it's about national survival. In the United States, it's about money. Bobby, I want to give you the last word. Any parting thoughts? And how are you thinking about November? I know VFRL, Veterans for
Yeah.
Responsible Leadership, has a lot of pieces on the board. Stick with the metaphor. What
Right.
should we know?
I think the races that we're looking at here, it's not just about winning control of something, right? Because if you notice, Todd Blanche got sworn in as Attorney General, and the first thing he did was basically try to provide blanket executive privilege protection to anybody that talks to President Trump. They know the Wu-Tang is coming. They know the gavel is going to switch hands, and they know subpoenas are about to come like a raid, right? The thing that we have to do as the American public is twofold. One, you got to vote and flip this, both houses. You have to. If you don't, I fear that the country that we know will fail and cease to exist for the rest of our lives, for a generation. That's number one. Number two, it's not enough to get these clowns in office. You have to hold them accountable. We have to hold them accountable. So if seats change hands within the first 30 days of that new congressman taking the oath, y'all need to be calling their staff. So you got to break
Mhm.
the new staff in and let them know this is the expectation of the American people. Because part of the problem that we have had here is these people have been in Congress so long, their staffers have been there with them for years. They'll get a complaint or a call at their local little regional office. I know because I've done it. And they just completely dismiss. Oh, well, thank you for your call. Click. No,
Yeah.
no, not
Yep.
good enough. You need to sit there and say, no, I will be at the next town hall. I will be at the next meeting,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. That piece. Because when you have new staff, you get a certain amount of time to train them on the expectations of the constituency, right?
Yep.
When you have people that have been in Congress for 30, 40 years, they no longer care about the constituency. They care about the people that cut checks.
Yep.
So we need to hammer that new Congress, Democrat and Republican. Democrat and Republican. For those who are still in, remind them you work for us, not the other way around. And right now, you have American service members who are in harm's way that don't have what they need because we did not act accordingly. You have a Congress that acts like, I don't have to listen to you. And you have a commander in chief that literally has a gaping hole at the White House that can't take his name off the Kennedy Performing Arts Center. He'd rather shut it down. He's hiding in catered trucks to fly back to the United States. This is what we have, people. So we have to step up, vote first, hold accountable second, and vote for people of character. That's the thing.
And every time we sacrifice accountability and that reckoning for moving forward, we just we repeat the cycle. Reconstruction. Time and time again in American history, we have decided to move forward instead of address accountability, and it has come back to bite us. And I would submit, Bobby, not just that folks need to vote and then hold their reps accountable. Start doing it now in town halls with candidates at
Yep.
candidate
Yep.
meetings. Say, what are you going to do to hold ICE accountable when you're elected? What are you going to do to hold this administration accountable when you're elected? That starts right now, but obviously the top priority is turnout in November. Bobby, as always, great having you. We might take a pass next week. I'm going to be downrange somewhere. I'll talk
Yeah.
about it when I'm back. And
Yep.
everyone, thanks so much for joining. See you soon.
Thanks, guys.